I needed to drill some holes from the pickup cavities into the main electrics cavity to run the wires, so I used a long 6mm drill bit. I put a cabinet scraper beneath the drill bit just to make sure that I wouldn't scratch or damage the body. I bought this piece of 3-ply white pickguard plastic from eBay, so I started designing a shape for the pickguard onto some white card which I would use as a template. I first carefully measured up the position of the pickups and marked them up. Then I cut those out and marked up a shape for the rest of the pickguard. I made a rubbing of the electrics cavity just so that I could check that I was leaving enough space around the edge of the pickguard for the pickup screws to go into the body. Then I cut it out and made a few adjustments before tracing the shape onto the pickguard plastic. I cut the plastic on the bandsaw, making sure to cut on the outside of the lines I'd drawn to make sure that I had enough material to work with. I did some test fits and marked up with a Sharpie where I needed to take off more material. With the final shape refined, I smoothed over the edges with a file and some 120 grit sandpaper. Then I marked up where the screw holes could go. And I drilled them out on the drill press. I countersunk the screw holes too so that the screws wouldn't protrude too much from the pickguard. To buff up the finish on the guitar body and neck, I tried some of this stuff that my dad found in his shed. It's a car paint cutting compound, and I rubbed it onto the body and the neck with a damp cotton cloth. It added a bit of sheen, but didn't seem to work as well as I'd hoped, so I moved on to this stuff, which was another thing that my dad found in his shed. I put some on the body and some on my buffing pad and used the orbital sander to apply it. Using the sander didn't work out too well either, so I ended up buffing with the pad in my hand instead, and that worked out much better. The surface looked quite murky when it was first applied, but as soon as I wiped the surface with a clean cotton cloth, it looked really nice. I think I did the same process 2 or 3 times and then I was happy with the finish. I bought a bone nut from eBay and I used some CA glue to stick the nut in place onto the fretboard and a spring clamp to hold it down. I'd already filed down a bit of material from the back of the nut to get it to the right height for the fretboard. Then I inserted the bridge pins into the body and made sure they were properly seated with a mallet. I could then add the bridge. Next I wanted to drill the holes for the pickup rings, so I put them in and added the pickguard and then marked the holes with an ice pick. Then I could drill and screw them down. And I did the same with the pickguard. I had ordered some proper pickguard screws, but they hadn't arrived yet, so instead I used some of these small brass screws. They were the wrong colour, so I sanded down the heads with some 600 grit paper until they were silver. I could replace these later once the actual screws arrived, but these would do for the time being. I bought a neck plate and screws from eBay for attaching the neck. I put the body into my vise wrapped in some fabric to protect the finish. I used a Sharpie to mark up the screw holes. I wanted the screws to be a tight fit, so I picked a drill bit where I could see the screw threads either side to make sure it would get a good grip. I used a clamp to hold the neck in its properly seated position and then drilled the holes. I'd already made a mark on the drill bit with a Sharpie so that I could drill the holes to the correct depth for the screws. I tried to drill the holes as straight as possible. Before adding the screws, I put some brie wax on the threads just to help them in. I screwed all 4 screws in most of the way and then tried to tighten them all evenly. Then I could wipe off the excess wax. I fitted the tuners. These just pushed in from the back, and then there's a ferrule to screw in from the front, which I could then tighten with a spanner. Once they were positioned correctly, I could add these small screws to hold them in place. Then I could add these strap buttons that I bought on eBay.